There was some pretty good tempo there on the offensive side today. And again, I'm going to say it, we have more experience on offense. We have more maturity. When you give them a couple of days off and you go back to work, you would expect to have a little bit of juice about them, and the offensive side did. It's kind of like, to me, when I look at the defensive side of the ball, look at it, a lot of guys are capable of being good football players. They've yet to do it at the college level. So you're looking for consistency every day in practice, and we've got to develop that and learn to push past and show a little bit more mental toughness, when we get sudden changes and work some situations like that. So, again, I feel like in the last 2 weeks that our guys in the kicking game have done a nice job, with our snappers, our holders, and our punters and kickers. And, we continue to work guys in return game, which is extremely important. We need that to become a weapon for us with our kickoff return and punt return this year. So with that, any questions?
Rob and David West.
Coach, just with a chance to review the film, did you feel any differently about the scrimmage after going back and looking at the tape? Anything you liked more than you thought on the first watch?
Well, to me, it's pretty simple. How can we improve in every phase? Assignments, okay, let's know what to do, right? Sounds pretty simple, but you would be amazed how many times that people play a play and don't know what to do. I'm not talking about Tennessee, I'm talking about everywhere, right? Knowing how to align, proper alignment, whether it's a wide receiver with a proper split, the location of a running back, tight end, could be an offensive lineman. Is he lined up in the backfield too deep, or hey, it could be too far on the ball, right? So a quarterback, is he got enough depth with his alignment in the gun? Defensively, there's all kind of alignment issues, obviously, whether it's a defensive lineman, a linebacker, DB. So all that's pretty simple. Then you talk about stance. There's a defined stance that we want everybody in on every play. Where your eyes are supposed to be, or key. Some people will say key. And then finish. All right, so there's 5 things: assignment, alignment, stance, your eyes, and how you finish. None of that has to do with ability. Not one bit has to do with ability. And we've got to improve in all those areas. So something that we're harping on this week. Excuse me.
How would you assess kind of where Jalen McCullough is right now for you guys?
Jalen McCullough, he was here this spring. Jalen's a guy that has maturity. He's a tough guy. Has instincts. He's learning kind of the couple of positions back there. He's a guy that can do that. Guy has ball skills. He has things that he does need to improve on, and he knows that. But he's a guy that comes to work every day, and one thing about it, you don't have to coach effort with him. He gives it most of the time.
Wes, and Patrick and Steve.
Jeremy, it looked like maybe Croc Garland was back out there today. If that was him, what's the latest there? Is he back for good, or what's that situation?
Well, I told you guys before when you asked me this. The portal, a lot of people look at it as a bad thing. I'm not one that looks at it that way. So you're talking about a young man that comes here as a freshman. He had several obstacles to go through, physically. So he was thinking about possibly transferring. We supported him all the way through, and in the end, he decided to come back here. He's here. We're excited that he's here. I think the guy has lots of ability. He didn't get to go through spring, but he took some reps out there today, and he's got to go through a little bit of acclimation here, and we have a plan for him. But he's a guy that I think has lots of upside, has done everything that we've asked him to do in this program since he's been here. So we're excited that he's here, and we'll see how he responds over the next couple of days being back out there.
Jeremy, it looked like Aaron Beasley was with the linebackers today. What have you been seeing out of him for most of the preseason, and kind of what's the plan with him moving forward in his position?
Well, it's really just because we're thin at the linebacker position. We've got a little bit of bug going around with a couple of our groups, and just so we can practice. And Aaron's a guy that would play money linebacker as a defensive back, so he's going to take a few reps there. Daniel Batuli is got a sore knee, and we've kept him out of a couple of practices here, so. We still got to keep practicing, even if guys get banged up or get sick. So we're just making do with what we got, and he's a guy that could probably play in there.
Is he going to go back to safety once you guys maybe a little bit more full strength, or is that long term? Do you see him as a safety?
No, I think he could play safety. We recruited him as a safety, but he's a guy that, in high school he was 215, 20 pounds, and he's really worked hard to get down to about 205, 206. But just from a practice, I think moving forward, he's a guy that, today he works as a third-team inside linebacker, so he could either work as a third-team inside backer or a third-team safety, right? So I think he has an opportunity to play faster right now this year, possibly in our nickel and sub packages as a linebacker.
As we get closer to the regular season, I was just wondering, from your perspective, handing the defensive calls over to Derek, how do you expect that to impact you as a head coach? How has it impacted you so far in your preparation? And what kind of adjustment will it be for you on Saturday? It's been a while since you haven't been the guy making those defensive calls. But.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be any different than it was before. Every call I'll hear every call that goes out there, and if there's one that I don't like, I'll say call this instead, right? So it's what you do. Why am I the head coach at Tennessee? Probably because I was a good play caller at one time, right? So I think me completely just getting out of it wouldn't be very smart. Derek has a great feel, and I've watched him in camp and in spring of what we want to get accomplished, and but he'll do a good job with it, and if he needs some help, I'll help him, right?
Jeremy, with Sean Schamberger, what's he done maybe throughout the last year to better his standing, and how does he look at the star position?
Well, I would say he's matured on and off the field. And he's worked hard to do that. So it's shown that he can be a little more reliable, dependable. I think he's got some ability. He's a good competitor, has good feel for playing inside. So we'll just continue to work him at star and see where that goes. We're working Alante in there. Nigel can play there. Theo, LaBruza, we double train our guys so they all can play multiple spots. We're just out there right now trying to figure out who's the best five. It gives us a chance to win. Who's going to be the sixth guy? Who's going to be the seventh guy? Who's going to be the eighth guy? And so on.
Coach Brian Niedermeyer won National Recruiter of the Year. What does he do that's so valuable in that aspect of the program?
Well, I think number one, he's young. He's not married, so what else does he have to do? It's not like he's got a wife to go home to or any kids to go home to. So what does he do? He recruits. He recruits all the time. He builds relationships with the players that we're recruiting. I think he's very personable. He's real. He's a guy that kind of stays on people, and he uses the resources that we have here, so I think he does a good job. He's a good coach too. A lot of people don't appreciate how good a coach that he is. He does a really good job. He could coach any side of the ball on defense. That's what he always was for us, was a defensive GA, but he's a very intelligent guy, and it really comes easy to him.
Coach, you were real complimentary of Henry. Excuse me, of Henry to start camp off. Has he been able to maintain that? As you've added more stuff.
Yeah, I mean Henry is he's been pretty consistent. We've had several young guys that have been really consistent, which is a positive. A lot of it is, maybe it's maturity. I don't know what it is, but you see it everywhere. I've seen it over the years, right? And you can't predict it. It don't matter who's got how many stars or where they played at or anything like that. Just sometimes when it kind of gets going in fall camp, some guys they don't blink and some guys do. So, but usually they all get it eventually, right? So he's picked it up pretty fast.
Jeremy, when you were talking the other day, I guess Saturday, about guys that might not always know exactly what they're doing but had a penchant for making plays, who were some of the guys that jumped out to your mind that you were kind of referencing?
Well, I would say most all the young players, right? Just from a standpoint that they don't have they hadn't spent the time because they couldn't, right? Whether it was they wasn't here during the spring or maybe they were here in the spring. But when you compare it to guys that have age on them and have more experience or have been in the system longer, that's usually who it is. There's very few, once you've been here for a couple of years, most everybody understands what you're trying to do that's been in the program. So they either kind of show up or they don't, and then lots of times it depends on who's in front of them, So, I've seen years to where we were really deep at defensive back, and maybe we had a good young player, and he didn't play for the first 2 years that he was in the program. Maybe he didn't play for the first 3 years, but he played his last 2, and then he's still playing, right? So it wasn't because he didn't have an opportunity to be a really good player. Maybe the opportunity didn't present itself. Maybe he wasn't ready at that time. Could have been because maybe his body wasn't mature enough yet. There's lots of things that go into that. So we have lots of guys on our team that are going to have a chance to be really good football players one day. And we got to understand that as coaches. I said all the time, don't place unrealistic expectations on them. My dad's always had a saying, for every freshman you play is a loss that you should have on your record. That's the way he looks at it in high school. And if you look at it along the way, it's probably about right.
Jesse and Grant.
Jeremy, you talked about how many different O-line combinations you guys went through on Saturday during the scrimmage. Obviously, you had the walkthrough for light practice yesterday, and you mentioned that you like the tempo of the offense today. Do you feel like you guys are kind of getting a greater understanding of maybe who those 5 or 6 guys might be up front, whether you're still moving them around or whatnot, but kind of finding the 5 or 6 that's going to be in that first group?
No, I think we'll probably play 8 to 10 guys. I really do. I think there's going to be that many guys that deserve to play. I think we're going to need to play that many guys, so we'll keep working on that way, and I think it's good. It's good for competition. Nobody's going to get complacent. Just go out there and work. Who performs the best every day will be with the ones. It's a kind of production-based industry, so just do it that way, and be a good thing.
How long can you wait on something from Aubrey before it changes the way you guys practice?
Well, we're not working on a game plan right now, so it wouldn't matter until probably up till probably Tuesday or Wednesday of next week.
Jeremy, has there been any separation at all between those 2 young quarterbacks, and when do you kind of want to see one of those guys start emerging as a guy who could be the guy in there if anything happens to Jarrett?
Both of these guys flash, so it's been a little bit like a yo-yo, right? So one day one of them has a really good day, and the next day the other one does. So just like a lot of young players, they're looking for consistency. So It's not that they don't have talent. They got plenty of talent and made a lot of plays in camp. But when you play that position, probably you wouldn't be here if you didn't have the ability to make plays. It's about giving the ball to the other team or staying out of negative plays. So that's what we're kind of looking for there.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.